Peace be with you. Salam alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Michael Decerno.
Decerno.
So as I was opening up at the end, I forgot to mention I mentioned from Sicily.
Sicily.
You were born in
No, America. Born in America.
America.
But my family's Sicilian.
Okay. Did you know Marco Corleone?
No, never.
You know what I'm talking about from The
Yes.
Godfather?
Yes.
Yeah. Now that's right away a big misconception, because as soon as you say, people confuse the two. It's Sicilian or Italian. Right away, people are like, okay, these are the mafia.
Yeah.
How far is that from the truth?
As far as Islam and terrorism is from the truth.
That's a good way to start now. They're the same way, all Italians, Sicilians, whatever, they're not in the mafia, are they?
Nope.
Muslims aren't terrorists.
Nope.
Yeah, and you found that out. You went through a whole big journey. Where did you start? Where did the journey start?
So, long story short, the way that I came to Islam, of course, 8.5 years into the monastery, everything was good. I had the life, I really did. I had no bills, and of course, no wife, no kids, none of this stuff. Not in the future, not then, not ever.
Because you can't, right?
You can't. It's a celibacy.
Yeah.
You take a vow of poverty, chastity, celibacy, and obedience. And so in that vow of celibacy and chastity, there is no wife or kids. So, but to be honest, because a lot of Muslims, they say to me, how could you do that, But see, the thing is that within the Catholic Church, it makes sense. Outside the Catholic Church, it doesn't make sense to live that lifestyle. So I'm living this lifestyle. I'm very comfortable with it. I feel good. I'm feeling positive. Okay. Now, 8.5 years in, one day I had to go to a church near the monastery that I was at. And when I was coming out of the church, I ran into a Muslim. Not intentionally, just by chance. And when I came out that church, and he was there, and he wasn't waiting, but we just crossed paths. He said to me, You're a Christian? I said, yes. He said, can you help me with something? I said, sure. He said, can you show me where Jesus says, I am God? I said, no problem. I've been studying this stuff for 8.5 years. I thrive for these moments. So I go to different verses of the Bible. Too many for me to quote right now. John 1:1, different, the Father and I are one. Before Abraham was, I am. All the God verses, as we would call them in Christianity. So I spit them off to him, try to give him the context and what they say. And he says to me, and this brother actually, come to find out, he was actually an ex-Catholic or ex-Christian who was very knowledgeable of the Bible. And he said to me, but that's John saying, that's John saying Jesus is God, and Paul saying Jesus is God, and Peter saying, but does Jesus say he's God? So I kind of thought it was funny because I never thought about it. When I accepted the Catholic Church and the Christian belief when I was 17, it was because I was desperate for something and they told me this is who God was. I didn't think about it. I didn't even want to think about it. I just accepted it. But this was really, maybe it's stupid me, but in 8.5 years, it was the first time I really thought, does he actually claim this kind of divinity that I give to him? So that night I went home and I really was thinking about it. And as I went through the Bible, I was looking for different proofs. I really saw that there is no explicit statement where Jesus himself says in the words that we would say, I am God or worship me, but that everybody else says he's God and worship him. So I met with this brother again, and we started having a dialogue on a regular basis. He gave me a Quran, and we started to dialogue and discuss Christianity and Islam, Mary, Jesus, the saints, everything. Who God is, Trinity, one God, what is it? So we must have kept in contact for probably about 3 months, going back and forth. I read the Quran cover to cover a couple times. Now, what I learned about Islam when I was studying was 3 things, and this is important. 1, false God. 2, false prophet. 3, false book. Everything's false. So that's all I believed about it.
About Islam?
About Islam. That was it. Never anything good. Never anything good. But when I opened up the Quran and I started to read it, I started to see some clarity. I started to see I started to see who God really is. And that the Quran actually was a confirmation of the books before and a completion. It was a last testament. And so through that dialogue with this brother, I came to Islam, alhamdulillah, 2 years ago. Because his arguments against Christianity were stronger than my arguments for Christianity. And I even came to a point so much, and I have to give a lot of credit to Ahmed Didat, because of course the sheikh who does a lot, of course deceased, but did a lot of dawah work, because when I learned that he was the main opponent of the Christian in dawah and trying to prove Jesus isn't God and the proof of Islam, I went online and started watching him. Not to become a Muslim, but to hear his arguments and to refute them on my own, to figure out how I could refute them. But what I did was, day after day, week after week, and I had listened to him for quite some time, month after month of listening to him, his arguments really made more sense than my own arguments. And his influence and his speech really played a positive role in me developing into a Muslim. And so through Ahmed Didat and through this brother who really opened my eyes, alhamdulillah, to the truth. Today, exactly what Jesus himself taught, alhamdulillah. That's exactly what I believe. Because the Jesus that I knew before was the Jesus that the church taught me. But when I went and looked at the Jesus himself, who he says he is, I found that was the Muslim Jesus.
The Muslim Jesus.
The Muslim Jesus. And that Muslim Jesus spoke of a prophet coming after him, who of course is Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And he said, when they asked him, what's the greatest commandment? He said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God, worship him.
That's it.
That's it.
Worship the
Creator. Same message as Muhammad, the same message as all the prophets, the same message as Moses. And that same Jesus who, like Muhammad, like the prophets, that same Jesus who fell down in the agony in the garden and put his forehead on that ground and worship God.
And that's how you pray today.
That's how I pray today.
And we greet also, we're going to cut out, we have to go, but peace be with you. That's the greeting in the Bible, isn't it also?
That's right.